Hey guys, Show1 here, and today, today I have something really cool to show you. This machine over here can detect when I right click. With no specific item in my inventory, it can just detect when I'm right clicking. So, let me just show you, how it works right away. If I just stop the clock first, so this thing doesn't follow me around. Block 36, also known as Piston Extension, is a block that has some very unique features. First of all, it has no collision box, so you can players and entities of all sorts can just go straight through it, not collide with it at all. And it's transparent, it doesn't render at all. And lastly, the most important thing is when you right click this in any game mode, I don't know if it works in spectator mode, probably doesn't, but anyway, when you right click this in any of the conventional game modes, it just disappears. It sets the block where it was at to air. So we can use that for some pretty cool stuff. So first of all, I have two command blocks over here. By the way, before I show you exactly how this works, I want to explain just the order, which I don't think I pointed out yet. The order in which these command blocks get triggered is basically there's slices going like this, and the slice here gets triggered first, then this one, then this one, then this one, and so on. And the order in every slice which the command blocks get triggered in is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, so anyway, what I have is a command block that's constantly executing at, this is just a placeholder, it'll probably be something like this, I don't know, something like that. But for now it's just at P, just for testing purposes. So we're executing at a player and setting the block at his head to a piston extension. And right before we do that, we fill a 3x3x3 area around the player's head with air with data value 1. This is very important, bear this in mind for a second. We fill an area of 3x3x3 around the player's head with air with data value 1, replacing any piston extension blocks. So it won't just set any blocks around the player's head to air, but only if it can find piston extensions. That's so that if we move, so say if I'm standing right here, there's going to be a piston extension block right there. Then I move to over here. Then it's going to set a new block there, but I wanted to get rid of that one first. That's what that command block does. And seeing as it's a 3x3x3 cube around the player's head, it just basically does that no matter in which direction the player is going. And then the first command block that I have here, which I purposely didn't show you yet, is this, which I'm executing at the player's head again. And I'm using the fill command for only just one block because the fill command can use the replace tag, which will test for a different block. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to see if there's an air with data value 0 in the player's head level. And if there is, I'm going to replace it with redstone wire, which if I just put that in midair, then it's just going to drop the item, which I can then use to execute at. But we'll get to that in a moment. So what I'm trying to do here is see if there's an air with data value 0 in the player's head, which again, the air with data value 0, this can only happen if a player will right click on a piston extension. And the rest of the air is going to constantly be set to air with data value 1, which this command block can't target. And on another note, I have replaced all the air blocks above the arena here, all the air blocks above the grass, for I think 10 blocks in height. I've replaced them all with air with data value 1. Now, Minecraft doesn't process data values for air blocks at all. It doesn't change them, it doesn't check for them, it doesn't do anything different with them. But we can use them to target various things in command blocks. So that's what we do, and by default, obviously, the default data value is 0, which is what happens when you right-click on a piston extension, which is what we're using here. Now, this idea of using piston extension blocks to detect right-clicking has been done before. I'm not the first to think of that, but I haven't seen anybody ever doing it in a multiplayer environment. So that's what I've done here. Basically, this is the command that enables us to do that. And it's pretty cool. So anyway, then what we're doing is fairly simple. We're just setting a dummy objective called weapon to 1 for an item, for a redstone dust item. Then we are setting the block we're executing at the redstone dust item and setting the block at its location to air with data value 1. Then we are again executing at it, and then this is just a placeholder command just to demonstrate that this is working. So we're executing at the nearest player, and they're running a /me command, something like that. For example, SureMC is hungry, so this would spit out SureMC right clicked, or whatever player right clicked. Anyway, so, and then we're just killing the item. So 7 commands to contain this pretty awesome effect. And you'll notice that while I'm in creative mode, then you can see the wireframe, but when I'm in adventure mode, when you're in adventure mode, you can't see wireframes for blocks at all, and Piston extension is no exception. Now, there are of course a few limitations with this. For example, if you have this running and you try to tap a button or something, you can't really do that. And if you're trying to melee fight someone, or someone is trying to melee fight you, then well, you can't really melee fight them, and they can only melee fight your feet. So that's a little weird. But for the most part, this isn't going to be activated for all players. This is only going to be activated for players who have a certain specification. Now, let me actually just get rid of this real quick so I can be a little bit more comfortable as I show you. That triggered just then, by the way, not because I right-clicked, but because there was an error block here from before, from when I stopped this clock previously. Because when I do this, there's an error block with data value 0 there. Anyway, so you know how there's these weapons, the rifle and the radial blast, and there are probably going to be more to come. That in order to use, up until now, I've been using a drop. So you have to drop the item in order to use it. So, I mean, that works fine, but it's not the most comfortable thing ever. And the main problem I have with this, which made me really quite worried, is the fact that if you're going to be running around and holding down your sprint button, if you try to drop something, it'll drop the entire stack at once. But you only get one use from it, because the command blocks over there are testing just for the item, not for how many items are in the stack. And I could make it only work if there's going to be one item in the stack, but that would mean that if you, say, sprint by an enemy and you accidentally drop an entire stack, then you're basically just given the enemy a stack of weapons which you should have been able to use. And that's not really what we want now, is it? So yeah, instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have another set of command blocks that's constantly running using some partial MBT data matching, and what it'll do is check the selected slot for the player, and say if in the selected slot right now there's one of these weapons, so for example rifle, then set a player's scoreboard objective. I think we're going to use weapons, just a dummy objective. Anyway, just set a score for that player that will mean that he has one of these items selected, and only then will this thing trigger at him. And for the rest of the time, when he's not going to have one of these items selected, which is going to be like, I don't know, 90% of the time, more or less, then he's not going to have a piston extension block in his head at all times, which means that for the most part, people can just melee normally. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get to work on that, and I'll show you guys in a little bit some progress. Alright, so I wanted to show you guys what I've done. So I've extended this clock a little bit back here, so this stuff needs to get triggered before the rest of the stuff that we had up until now. So first of all, at the start of every single game tick, I'm just resetting the weapon score for everybody. Then I'm setting all players' weapon scores to 0. And then I have a strip here of 9 command blocks, and I've left the rest of the stuff here empty, and that's because that's just basically sort of infrastructure, if you will, for in the future if I want to add more weapons. And I'm gonna do the radial blast in just a moment. This is for the rifle. But basically, there's 9 command blocks here, and there's 4 slots available for this kind of thing at the moment. I can always add more, but what these 9 command blocks do is they set the scoreboard for any player to weapon 1 if their selected item slot is 0 and they have an Iron Horse armor with the name rifle in the slot 0. And slot 0 is basically this right here. It's the first slot of your hotbar. So if there's a rifle in the slot 0 and the player's selected item slot is 0, set his weapon score to 1. And we're doing the same here 9 times for all 9 hotbar slots, so that's 0 all the way through to 8. And we're going to do the same thing basically for the radial blast, only for the radial blast it's going to set the score of weapon to 2. So rifle is 1, radial blast is 2, and so on. Now over here, this is what I had before with the why is this floating here? With the piston extension stuff and the right click detection. So this is the same as before. This is the thing that checks for error with data 0, and now instead of at P, it's executing at A, who has a score weapon min of 1. Then I'm doing the same thing here as before, replacing all piston extensions in a 3x3x3 cube around the player's head. If the player is at all players, because the way I had it is I was doing this for players with a weapon score of at least 1. And then separately, for a different reason, I was doing it for players who have a weapon score of 0, which is basically 2 resets, because if I don't do that for players with a weapon score of 0, then say I'm holding this right now, then I have a piston extension block in my head right now, and then I let go of that, then the piston extension block is just going to stay there. And you saw a little demonstration of how this works just there. So I select rifle, it sets my weapon score over here to 1, and then it starts doing the whole block 36 thing. And I can then right click. I haven't set it up to do anything yet, but I can do this. And this works for any slot in my hotbar, so that also works. Alright. Okay. Anyway, the next thing we're doing is executing at player who has weapon score of at least 1 and doing setting that block to the block in his head to piston extension, and the rest of the stuff is the same. Basically, setting the scoreboard weapon to 1 for a redstone item, setting the block at the redstone item to air, and then at the end here we're killing that same redstone item. And I've left what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots available here to add command blocks to do stuff with the appropriate weapon, with the appropriate redstone and weapon score. So I just wanted to show you guys how I do this. So scoreboard player, we're going to execute at E type equals item score weapon min equals 1. So we're executing at the redstone here, and we're gonna scoreboard players set at P within the same block. So radius of 1 of rifle to 1. If they have a score weapon of 1. So if the player has a score weapon of I have to do this of exactly 1. Score weapon equals 1. So if the player has a score weapon of exactly 1, which means that he's selected a rifle in his hotbar, and he right clicks, which is what would trigger this whole command to run in the first place, then we will execute at that player, we'll just set the scoreboard objective of rifle for that player to 1. Aha! So I'm in adventure mode, and I have the rifle selected in my inventory. You'll notice over here to the right in the weapon score, if I deselect that, it'll turn to 0, and if I move that to a different slot in my inventory, it'll still recognize it. And if I right click with it not selected, it doesn't do anything, even if I try and do it really quick. But if I right click with it selected, it shoots. Aha! Now we just need to make it basically clear a single, don't want them to blow up on me, clear a single rifle item from the player's inventory. He uses it. But yeah, right clickable rifle. Come on, man. right-clickable rifle that works in multiplayer. I should mention. Yeah, it's better to just use the rifle while moving around. It's better to aim that way. Yeah, I gotta change the rifle a little bit because it keeps hitting the player sometimes. It's simple to fix though. Don't mind the chunk rendering issue in the snapshot. Yes. Alright, so to end it off, I just want to get rid of this command, which we don't need. And show you guys that I've set up the radial blast thing, so it's the same thing here. And by the way, I tried to do something last time which kind of failed, and I tried to add a damage tag to items, and what I missed, the reason it wasn't working is because I had to add this S here to signify that it's a short tag and not a int tag. Yeah, anyway, that's just for if you know a little bit about programming. So that's mandatory. And then here I of course added this thing, so this will execute at the redstone item and set the nearest player who has a weapon score of 2, it'll set his rad blast score to 1, and that of course works over here. So if I go ahead and get myself radial blast and rifle and set my game mode to adventure mode here, so let's just move this around in my hotbar. You'll see this works. Again, weapon 2, weapon 1. So the rifle works now, right clicking with a weapon score of 1, and the radial blast works with a weapon score of 2. Yeah, both work very nicely. And I still need to change this area and that area of command blocks for the rifle and radial blast. The stuff we had before, I need to change it up a little bit to work with this. But for the most part, this is done for now. Alright guys, so I hope you all enjoyed. I think this is a very cool new addition to this game, and I think it's going to make it a whole lot more fun, plus, you know, the other benefits of this thing, which is people will rage less probably because of items getting, like, losing a whole stack of weapons instead of just one. Anyway, yeah, so I definitely enjoyed this. I need to change stuff up a little bit yet, like I said. But at that note, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you all next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.